12-year-old Naomi Ellison sat in the third row, second seat from the window, arms folded, eyes locked on the equation glowing in dry erase marker at the front of the room. It was algebra, advanced, beyond the regular curriculum. But Naomi liked the way numbers made sense when the rest of life didn't. The classroom wasn't loud, exactly, but a steady rhythm of chatter filled the air, the kind that made it easy to slip into the background unnoticed. That's how Naomi usually operated at Clearwater Middle in Boise, Idaho. Keep your head down. Finish your work. Don't make waves. But today, something shifted. Mr. Redford, a tall, gray-haired man with a permanent smirk and sleeves always rolled to his elbows, turned from the board and faced the class. "All right," he said, tapping his marker against his palm. "If anyone can solve this, I'll call you the next Einstein." The class laughed. A few kids rolled their eyes. Most looked down at their notebooks. Naomi's fingers twitched. She stared at the numbers, her brain working through the steps in silence. Then, slowly, she lifted her hand. Mr. Redford blinked. "Ellison," he said, as if surprised she was even there. "You want to take a shot at it?" Naomi nodded. Her voice caught somewhere behind her ribs. He smiled. "Well, this one's impossible. Let's not waste time." A few students snorted. A boy near the back let out a high-pitched fake laugh. Naomi's cheeks burned, but she didn't lower her hand. She just looked at Mr. Redford, eyes steady, quiet but unmoving. He waved her off. "It's fine. Let's move on." But it wasn't fine. Naomi let her hand drop slowly, carefully, like folding in a wing. The moment passed, but something stayed inside her, not anger, not even shame, just something that needed air. Mr. Redford scribbled the next problem on the board, speaking too fast, the class following along. Naomi didn't move. She kept her eyes on that first problem. She knew what it felt like to be underestimated. It wasn't new. She was one of 3 black students in the entire grade, and the only one in that honors math class. Teachers smiled at her, sure, but it was a thin kind, the kind that said good girl but didn't really expect much. And Mr. Redford? He never called on her unless he had to. When the bell rang, Naomi stood slowly, waiting for the rush to clear. Mr. Redford turned to wipe the board. She didn't leave. "Mr. Redford," she said. He turned halfway, surprised to see her still there. "Yes." "Can I have that problem?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "The first one," she said. "The one you said was impossible." He looked at her a long second, then reached into the tray below the board and handed her a folded sheet. "Sure, knock yourself out," he said, like it was a joke. Like there wasn't a chance in the world she'd come back with an answer. Naomi took it without a word, tucked it into her math folder, and left. But she didn't go home to forget it. She went home to solve it. Naomi walked the 2 blocks home, past the gas station with the crooked sign, and the laundromat where machines always smelled like burnt dryer sheets. Her backpack bounced with every step, but she barely noticed. Her mind was somewhere else. Inside that front zipper was a problem Mr. Redford said was impossible. Her mom, Denise Ellison, was in the kitchen, working 2 burners and the air fryer at once. The smell of seasoned chicken and green beans hit Naomi as she walked through the door. "You're home early," Denise called over the sizzle. Naomi dropped her backpack by the dining table and slid into the corner seat, the same one her older brother used before he left for college. She pulled out the sheet of paper and laid it flat. "Everything good at school?" her mom asked, peeking around the corner. Naomi gave a small nod. "Yeah, just got a math thing I want to figure out." Denise wiped her hands and stepped closer, eyeing the paper. "That doesn't look like the usual." "It's not," Naomi said. "My teacher said it was impossible." Her mom raised a brow. "And you took that as a challenge, huh?" Naomi cracked a tiny smile. "Something like that." Denise kissed the top of her head. "Well, you got your daddy's brain. You'll crack it wide open. I know you will." Naomi didn't say out loud, but something about that moment, about being believed without having to prove anything, pushed her to try harder. She got to work. Pencil tapping, eraser shavings piling up, paper edges framed from being turned and folded. It wasn't easy. At first, the numbers wouldn't fall into place. The formula felt twisted. But the more she stared, the more it started to shift. Not make sense all at once, but reveal little corners she hadn't seen before. She worked for hours. Took a break only when her mom called her for dinner. Ate with one foot bouncing under the table. Then went back to it again. By 9:40 p.m., her bedroom floor was littered with scratch paper and balled-up attempts. She lay flat on her stomach, chin resting on her forearm, staring at the same line of numbers for the 50th time. And then something clicked. A tiny connection. A thread. She sat up, started over slower this time, rebuilt the whole thing. Her pencil moved without stalling. Step by step, the path started forming in front of her. No guesswork, just clarity. She checked her work twice, 3 times. Then, almost without thinking, she started again from a different angle. Not just a double check, but to see if there was another way, a second method. Her mom peeked in around midnight. "You still at it?" Naomi looked up, eyes wide and a little dazed. "I think I got it." Denise smiled, but there was worry behind it. "Baby, it's late." "I know," Naomi whispered, "but I figured it out. I actually did." She held up 2 pages, one with her original work, the other with a whole new method, cleaner this time. She looked up at her mom like she was holding proof of something bigger than numbers. Denise sat beside her on the floor, took the papers in hand, and just stared at them. "You're going to take these to school Monday?" Naomi nodded. Her mom exhaled. "All right, then. Don't go showing off too hard." Naomi grinned. "I'm not. I just want him to see." But Naomi wasn't ready for how different everything would feel the moment she walked back into that classroom. Monday morning came early. Naomi didn't eat much breakfast, but she drank her juice and tied her shoes tight. The sky was cloudy but dry as she walked to school, gripping the strap of her backpack a little tighter than usual. Inside the building, the hallways buzzed with the usual noise, lockers slamming, kids laughing too loud, footsteps squeaking on wax tile. Naomi barely heard it. She reached room 206 right as the bell rang. Mr. Redford was already writing on the board, his back to the door. She slipped into her seat, folder still inside her bag, her heart beating loud in her ears. He didn't look at her, didn't say a word about Friday. Naomi waited. She didn't raise her hand this time, not yet. But when the opportunity finally came, it wasn't Mr. Redford who gave it to her. It was one of her classmates. Third period started like any other. Mr. Redford launched into the lesson, talking faster than most of the class could follow. His words bounced between formulas and half-solved examples. Naomi sat still, her folder resting beneath her notebook, unopened. She didn't want to force it. She wanted him to see her, to acknowledge what he'd dismissed. 20 minutes in, he showed no sign of remembering what happened Friday. No side glance, no raised brow. Just math and markers. Then something unexpected happened. It was Joshua Levine, one of the louder kids in class. He played soccer and made everything into a joke, but today he looked confused. Mr. Redford?" he asked. "Can we go back to that problem from last week? The hard one." Redford paused, marker in midair. "Which one?" "The one you said nobody could solve." A murmur rolled across the classroom. Heads turned. A couple kids chuckled. Redford shook his head. That one wasn't really meant to be solved. It was just for show. But what if someone did? Josh asked, glancing sideways. That's when Naomi felt it. 6 eyes sliding toward her. She didn't move. Her hand didn't rise. "Not yet." Mr. Redford laughed a little. "Well, then I guess they'd be smarter than me." The room went quiet. Naomi pulled the folder from her bag, slow and deliberate. Her hands didn't shake this time. She raised her hand. High, straight, confident. Redford hesitated. His gaze met hers, and for a second, the air felt heavy. "You want to take a stab at it now?" he asked. Naomi didn't say a word. She stood and walked to the front of the class, folder in hand. No one whispered. No one laughed. She opened the folder, laid the papers on the desk, then picked up a clean black marker and turned to the board. The equation was still faintly visible beneath the new writing. She erased a fresh problem with one swipe and rewrote the original. Then she turned back. "There are 2 ways to solve it," she said. "I wrote them both out if you want to check later." Redford blinked. He took a step back, gesturing for her to go ahead. She didn't look at him again. Naomi faced the board and started explaining. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried clear, steady. She moved to the first method, labeling each step as she went. She paused to ask, "Everyone following so far?" No one answered, so she continued. Every number landed where it belonged. Every sign pointed in the right direction. She boxed the answer, then stepped aside. "That's the first way." Then she flipped the page and started again. "This method's longer, but it works if you don't remember how to factor." Her tone didn't change. She wasn't showing off. She was teaching. When she finished, she capped the marker, walked back to her desk, and sat down. Silence. Then, "Dang," Josh muttered. A girl in the front whispered, "She really did it." And from the back, someone clapped. One clap, then a few more. It wasn't a standing ovation, but it was real. Mr. Redford stepped forward, picked up her pages, and scanned them. He didn't speak right away, but when he did, his voice was quieter. "Well," he said, "looks like I was wrong." Naomi met his eyes for the first time since Friday. "Yeah," she said, "you were." But what happened after class would show her that solving the problem was only half the story. How people reacted to it was the rest. When the bell rang, the class didn't jump up like they usually did. There was a beat of hesitation, like no one wanted to be the first to move. Naomi calmly placed her folder back into her backpack, zipped it up, and stood. As she walked toward the door, Josh leaned toward her. "Hey," he said, "that was sick. Seriously." Naomi gave a tiny nod. "Thanks." Outside in the hallway, footsteps bounced off the lockers, voices echoing down the corridors. But Naomi barely noticed. She felt different walking through the crowd, not taller exactly, but steadier, like she was no longer trying to shrink herself. She rounded the corner toward her locker when she heard her name. "Naomi." It was Camille Dorsey, one of the popular girls. Pretty, loud, always at the center of something. Camille jogged up beside her. "Yo, you actually solved that problem?" Naomi gave a quiet, "Yeah." "That was crazy," Camille said. Even Mr. Redford looked shook. Naomi shrugged. It wasn't impossible. Camille laughed, flipping her braid over one shoulder. "Girl, you made that man eat his own words. That was boss." More footsteps. A few other kids lingered nearby, looking at Naomi differently, not mocking, not ignoring, just watching. One boy muttered, "I didn't even get the first step." "Same," said another. Naomi didn't smile, but she didn't lower her eyes either. She just opened her locker and began switching books like she always did. Down the hallway, Mr. Redford walked by, carrying a stack of papers. He glanced at Naomi, then kept going. No nod, no good job. Just a straight face and fast steps. At lunch, she sat at her usual table near the back. She was halfway through her sandwich when Principal Marcia Linwood appeared beside her. "Naomi, do you have a second?" Naomi blinked. Sure." She followed Principal Linwood to the front office, where the assistant principal and one of the counselors were waiting. Linwood gestured for her to sit. "We heard about this morning," she said, smiling. "Your math teacher shared your work with us." Naomi sat straighter. "Oh." The counselor, Mr. Patel, leaned forward. "We'd like to nominate you for the Regional Math Showcase next month. It's a weekend event in Spokane. Brings together the top middle school students from around the area." Naomi blinked again. "Wait, really?" Linwood nodded. "We think you'd represent Clearwater well." Naomi's stomach did a slow turn. This wasn't what she expected. All she wanted was to prove Mr. Redford wrong. Now, there were other people watching, people who believed her. "Can I talk to my mom about it first?" "Of course," Mr. Patel said. "We'll send the info home today." As Naomi walked back to the cafeteria, her legs felt strangely light, excited but also unsure. Because now, it wasn't just about one problem. Now she was visible. That afternoon, during last period, her teacher, Miss Barlow, who taught language arts, paused mid-lesson to say, "Naomi, I heard what you did in math class. That's impressive work." Half the class turned to look at her. Naomi didn't say anything. She just gave a quiet nod. When the final bell rang and she stepped outside, her mom was waiting in the car. "How'd it go?" Denise asked as Naomi buckled her seatbelt. Naomi handed her the showcase flyer. "They want me to go to Spokane next month." Her mom read it slowly, then looked at her. "You serious?" Naomi nodded. Denise started the car. "Well," she said, "seems like that impossible problem did more than just get solved. But the truth was, the hardest part still wasn't the math. It was facing the people who had never expected her to win in the first place." She rounded the corner toward her locker when she heard her name. "Naomi." It was Camille Dorsey, one of the popular girls. Pretty, loud, always at the center of something. Camille jogged up beside her. "Yo, you actually solved that problem?" Naomi gave a quiet, "Yeah." "That was crazy," Camille said. Like, even Mr. Redford looked shook. Naomi shrugged. "It wasn't impossible." Camille laughed, flipping her braid over one shoulder. "Girl, you made that man eat his own words. That was boss." More footsteps. A few other kids lingered nearby, looking at Naomi differently, not mocking, not ignoring, just watching. One boy muttered, "I didn't even get the first step." "Same," said another. Naomi didn't smile, but she didn't lower her eyes either. She just opened her locker and began switching books like she always did. Down the hallway, Mr. Redford walked by, carrying a stack of papers. He glanced at Naomi, then kept going. No nod, no good job. Just a straight face and fast steps. At lunch, she sat at her usual table near the back. She was halfway through her sandwich when Principal Marcia Linwood appeared beside her. "Naomi, do you have a second?" Naomi blinked. Sure." She followed Principal Linwood to the front office, where the assistant principal and one of the counselors were waiting. Linwood gestured for her to sit. "We heard about this morning," she said, smiling. "Your math teacher shared your work with us." Naomi sat straighter. "Oh." The counselor, Mr. Patel, leaned forward. "We'd like to nominate you for the Regional Math Showcase next month. It's a weekend event in Spokane, brings together the top middle school students from around the area." Naomi blinked again. "Wait, really?" Linwood nodded. "We think you represent Clearwater well." Naomi's stomach did a slow turn. This wasn't what she expected. All she wanted was to prove Mr. Redford wrong. Now, there were other people watching, people who believed her. "Can I talk to my mom about it first?" "Of course," Mr. Patel said. "We'll send the info home today." As Naomi walked back to the cafeteria, her legs felt strangely light, excited but also unsure. Because now, it wasn't just about one problem. Now, she was visible. That afternoon, during last period, her teacher, Miss Barlow, who taught language arts, paused mid-lesson to say, "Naomi, I heard what you did in math class. That's impressive work." Half the class turned to look at her. Naomi didn't say anything. She just gave a quiet nod. When the final bell rang and she stepped outside, her mom was waiting in the car. "How'd it go?" Denise asked as Naomi buckled her seatbelt. Naomi handed her the showcase flyer. "They wanted to go to Spokane next month." Her mom read it slowly, then looked at her. "You serious?" Naomi nodded. Denise started the car. "Well," she said, "seems like that impossible problem did more than just get solved. But the truth was, the hardest part still wasn't the math. It was facing the people who had never expected her to win in the first place." The next morning, Naomi walked into room 206 like any other day. Same desk, same notebook, same scratch in the seat that snagged her sweater sleeve if she wasn't careful. But the atmosphere was off. Not tense, just different. Kids who had never said more than 2 words to her before were suddenly watching her out of the corners of their eyes. One girl leaned over and whispered something to her friend. Naomi couldn't hear it, but the way they looked back at her said enough. Mr. Redford came in just before the bell. He didn't say good morning. He didn't ask if anyone had questions. He jumped straight into a new lesson, like Friday and Monday hadn't happened at all. Naomi didn't expect a full apology, but something, anything, might have meant he saw her differently now. He never mentioned the problem or her solution, not even in passing. Instead, he handed out a worksheet like nothing ever happened. Naomi sat quietly and worked through the problems, but her mind wandered, not because she didn't understand them, she did, but because the silence from Mr. Redford spoke louder than anything else in the room. After class, she waited again. Let the other kids file out. When it was just the two of them, she approached his desk. He looked up. Need something? Naomi hesitated, then pulled the folder from her bag. These are the original pages from the weekend. You said I could bring them in. Redford took the folder, barely glanced at the top sheet. Thanks, he said flatly. I already showed the copies to the principal. That was it. No well done. No, I was wrong. Just thanks. Naomi waited, hoping he'd say more, but he was already stacking papers. She turned to leave. Naomi. She paused. Redford looked at her. You're very bright, but just be careful. Careful? He nodded once. Some kids don't take well to being shown up. Naomi didn't reply. She just left the room. Outside in the hallway, the words stuck to her. Not for what they meant, but for what they didn't. That weekend, her mom took her shopping for a winter jacket. Spokane in February wasn't going to be kind. They found one on clearance, navy blue with a soft lining. Naomi tried it on and looked in the mirror for a while. Denise stood behind her. You ready? Naomi nodded. Yeah. That night, as they packed the trip, Denise handed her a folded note. Don't open it till you're on the bus. The next morning, Naomi boarded with her backpack, coat zipped up, folder in hand. As the driver started the engine, she opened the note. It said, whatever room you walk into, walk like you belong, because you do. She folded it back up and tucked it into her math folder. The bus pulled away from the curb, and Naomi looked out the window, not to watch what she was leaving behind, but to imagine what she might build next. The real lesson. Every child deserves to be seen for who they are, not who someone assumes they'll be. If you know someone like Naomi, believe in them before they prove themselves. And if you're someone like Naomi, don't wait for the world to validate you. You know your worth. Carry it proudly and teach them to see it.